In an instant, one man was swallowed by the rushing darkness, while the other clung desperately to the cave wall. What was supposed to be a fun exploration quickly turned into a life-or-death struggle. Two friends entered an Indiana cave. It started like any other adventure. Two friends, the thrill of exploration, and the promise of discovery deep within a hidden cave system. But then, nature turned on them. What was supposed to be a daring cave expedition transformed into a nightmare. On July 1st, 1985, Michael Hall, 25, and Roman Lazowski, 24, entered the Donaldson and Bronson cave systems in Indiana, unaware that this would be a journey they'd never forget. They had explored caves before, but nothing could have prepared them for the sudden shift in weather. Torrential rains from the night before had turned the cave's gentle stream into a furious, raging river. The two friends, armed with little more than flashlights and swim trunks, were about to be tested in ways they never expected. Even with the rain from the previous night, they felt confident enough to enter the Bronson cave. This was not their first time navigating the cave's passages. Their goal was to travel from the Bronson entrance to the Donaldson exit, something they had completed before. But the rain from the night before had raised the water levels within the cave system, creating dangerous conditions that they hadn't anticipated. Bronson and Donaldson caves form part of a larger cave system within Spring Mill State Park in Indiana, with passages stretching up to 8,000 feet. It was a favorite spot for adventurers. But on that fateful day, the relentless rain turned the normally calm cave stream into a mess. With nothing more than flashlights, swim trunks, and tennis shoes, the two friends went into the cave, unaware of the danger that awaited them. The beginning of their journey was typical of their previous explorations. They waded through shallow waters, confident that they would be able to manage the rising stream levels. But as they ventured deeper, the rising water turned from a gentle stream into waist-deep rapids, and that's when things started to go wrong. What began as a manageable adventure quickly became a fight for survival. The heavy rains had swollen the cave stream to dangerous levels, transforming it into a roaring river of water rushing through the cave's winding passages. Michael and Roman found themselves at the mercy of increasingly powerful rapids. At first, they tried to enjoy the wild ride, but as the currents grew stronger, they soon realized they were in real trouble. They encountered a huge rapid, a rushing force of water too powerful to fight against. The two men tried to turn back, but the water was too strong. In the blink of an eye, disaster struck. The current became too much to handle. Roman was the first to lose his footing. He was swept away, disappearing into the darkness as the water carried him deeper into the cave. Desperately, Michael tried to follow, hoping to help his friend. But within seconds, the current overtook him too, and he was pulled downstream. Michael's flashlight, still in his hand, stuck out of the water as he was dragged along by the raging current. He was battered against the jagged cave walls, each impact sending shockwaves of pain through his body. The fight to stay afloat was relentless. Just when he thought he might drown, the water pushed him out through the Donaldson cave entrance. Exhausted, bruised, and half-dressed, Michael clawed his way onto the bank, his body shaking from the ordeal. But Roman was still inside the cave, trapped in complete darkness with the deafening sound of rushing water all around him. He had to rely on his instincts and survival training to stay alive. He managed to grab onto a small ledge no more than 6 inches wide that kept him out of the water's deadly grip. The temperature inside the cave was bone-chilling, hovering at around 13 degrees Celsius. Roman's wet clothes clung to his body, and the threat of hypothermia loomed large. Every passing minute was a battle to stay awake, as slipping into sleep meant risking a fatal fall into the water below. He shouted for help, hoping that someone might hear him, but the only sound that came back was the roar of the water. What Roman did have was his mental toughness. As a former Marine, he had been trained for survival in extreme conditions. He drew on that training now, forcing himself to stay alert. Every few minutes he shifted his position on the tiny ledge, using his elbows, knees, and head to hold himself steady. Outside the cave, Michael, though battered and bruised, managed to find his way to help. He was rushed to the hospital to treat his injuries, which included cuts, bruises, and a chipped elbow. But all he could think about was his friend Roman, still trapped inside the cave. His words to rescuers were filled with fear and urgency. "My friend is still in the cave." With that, the authorities launched a full-scale rescue operation, one of the most challenging cave rescues ever attempted in the state of Indiana. As word spread, the National Cave Rescue Commission, or NCRC, was brought in, led by experienced cave rescue expert Tom Paquette. The situation was dire. The water inside the cave was still rising, and more rain was on the way. Any attempt to enter the cave was fraught with danger. A team of rescuers, clad in wetsuits, attempted to enter Bronson Cave, but after only 600 to 800 feet, they were forced to turn back due to the overpowering current. Another team tried entering through Donaldson Cave, but they couldn't make it more than 100 feet upstream before being stopped by the dangerous flow and the low ceilings. The rescue teams were left with no choice but to wait. Time was running out, and every hour that passed without word from Roman made the situation more desperate. Now, while workers worked tirelessly outside the cave, Roman was fighting a mental battle inside. With no food, no light, and no idea how long he had been trapped, he began to lose track of time. The sound of the rushing water was a constant reminder of the danger lurking just below him. But Roman's will to survive never wavered. He mentally listed the things he would do once he was rescued, keeping his mind occupied with thoughts of the future. At one point, he began having imaginary conversations with a companion, discussing NBA draft picks to stay focused and avoid panic. To stave off numbness, Roman banged on his leg when it fell asleep, fighting the growing cold and exhaustion. Each time he felt himself drifting off to sleep, he woke himself up by screaming, "Help, I'm still here." Even in the face of overwhelming odds, Roman refused to give up. By Tuesday morning, more than 24 hours had passed since Roman had become trapped inside the cave. The rescue teams knew that time was running out. Hypothermia was a serious threat, and they couldn't be sure if Roman had found a safe spot or if he had been swept away by the current. In a last-ditch effort, a drilling team was brought in to try and create an opening into the cave from above. Meanwhile, another team scouted the dry room, a nearby area about 100 meters upstream from where Michael and Roman had been separated. The hope was that Roman might have made it to the dry room, and rescuers could tunnel through. As they worked, Roman's strength was fading. With no idea if anyone was coming for him, he clung to the hope that rescuers would find him in time. His mind raced with thoughts of survival, but his body was slowly giving in to exhaustion and cold. Finally, on the morning of July 3rd, after nearly 57 hours in the cave, the rescue team got the break that they had been waiting for. Rescuers monitoring the water levels near the Donaldson Cave entrance heard something, faint but unmistakable, a voice calling for help. The water had dropped just enough to allow sound to travel through a small air pocket. Dr. Noel Sloan, one of the rescuers, picked up a megaphone and shouted, "Are you hurt?" Roman's weak voice came back. "I'm okay. Just get me out of here." It was the breakthrough everyone had been praying for. Roman was alive. The challenge now was to reach Roman. Despite confirming that he was alive, the situation was far from under control. The water levels were still high, and the current continued to pose a serious threat. Rescuers realized that they had no choice but to make another bold attempt to save him. Steve Collins, one of the lead rescuers, stepped up to the task. He knew the danger, but there was no time to waste. Securing the rope to a piton in the cave wall, Collins carefully inched his way through the turbulent water. The space between the water and the cave ceiling was just a few centimeters, making it difficult to move, let alone navigate safely. As Collins pressed forward, he spotted the dim glint of Roman's flashlight in the distance. The sight of that light filled Roman with a surge of hope. He wanted nothing more than to leap toward Collins, but he knew any sudden movement could send him plummeting into the treacherous waters below. Collins shouted for Roman to stay put. He threw a rope to Roman, instructing him to tie it to a nearby rock to secure himself. Despite being weak from exhaustion and cold, Roman managed to follow the instructions. Once he was safely tethered, Collins and the rest of the rescue team began the slow, painstaking process of pulling Roman across the stream toward the cave's entrance. But just as they were nearing safety, disaster struck. The piton anchoring the rope gave way, and both Roman and Collins were swept downstream. It was a heart-stopping moment. The raging water carried them dangerously close to the cave's exit, and for a brief second it seemed like all was lost. In what can only be described as a stroke of luck, the downstream rescuers managed to catch both Roman and Collins just in time. The narrow passage of the cave had worked in their favor, allowing them to be retrieved before the current could drag them further into the cave's deadly depths. Roman, now completely drained of energy, was immediately fitted with a wetsuit top and helmet to help combat the effects of hypothermia. The rescue team used a Tyrolean traverse, a rope-based method used to transport people across dangerous gaps, to haul Roman safely out of the cave. It was 8 p.m. on Wednesday, July 3rd, 1985. 55 hours after Roman had first been swept away by the water. Against all odds, he had survived. Cold, bruised, and dehydrated, Roman was immediately taken to the hospital for treatment. Remarkably, despite the grueling ordeal, his injuries were limited to cuts and bruises. His survival was nothing short of miraculous. Roman Lazowski was hospitalized for several days as doctors treated him for hypothermia and dehydration. But it was clear to everyone involved that his Marine Corps training had played a significant role in keeping him alive. Doctors credited Roman's mental toughness and survival instincts as key factors in his ability to withstand the cave's harsh conditions for over 2 days. Meanwhile, Michael Hall recovered quickly from his injuries, which included bruises, cuts, and a chipped elbow. The emotional toll, however, lingered. For those 55 hours, Michael had feared the worst for his friend. The relief of knowing Roman had survived was overwhelming. The incident in Donaldson-Bronson Cave stands as a stark reminder of the inherent dangers of cave exploration. Even for experienced adventurers like Michael and Roman, the unpredictability of nature can quickly turn a routine outing into a life-threatening situation. The heavy rains that had swelled the cave stream were unseen but deadly, and the force of the water inside the cave was far greater than either man had anticipated. Rescue teams, too, were pushed to their limits. The strength of the currents and the narrow, low-ceiling passages made every attempt to reach Roman a dangerous gamble. Despite these challenges, the persistence and expertise of the rescue crews saved Roman's life, and their efforts serve as a testament to the importance of well-trained, specialized rescue teams in extreme situations like these. Roman Lazowski's ordeal is not just a story of survival. It is a testament to the power of the human spirit. Faced with freezing temperatures, complete darkness, and the constant threat of drowning, Roman refused to give up. For 55 hours, he fought both the physical and mental battles of survival. His Marine Corps training had taught him how to survive in extreme conditions, but it was his mental resilience that truly made the difference. Roman kept his mind sharp, refusing to give in to panic. He mentally listed things that he would do once he was rescued, and when he felt himself slipping into unconsciousness, he screamed himself awake, shouting, "Help! I'm still here." Roman's story reminds us of the incredible strength we possess when we are pushed to the limits. In situations where everything seems hopeless, the Sierra Juarez mountain range towers over the majestic land of Oaxaca in southern Mexico. Beneath these tall mountains and lush forests lies the Chevé Cave, an expansive network of tunnels that stretches 47 miles in length, with its deepest point tunneling down close to a mile into the earth. The cave's unique structure has challenged explorers for decades, and cavers were convinced it was the deepest cave on Earth. Beyond its challenge, the cave is also home to a number of dark secrets. The Chevé cave system was formally discovered in 1987, but archaeologists have unearthed relics that date back to the year 1250 AD. Scientists found knives that were used to slice open sacrifices before the bodies were sent to the deep abyss of the Chevé cave below. And, on March 1st, 1991, the cave claimed the life of a young caver who wanted to be one of the historical few to brave depths of this mysterious cave. Grab your rappelling gear and get ready to explore the dark history of the Chevé cave. The Chevé Cave, known locally as Cueva Chevé, was first discovered by Carol Vesely and Bill Farr during their Proyecto Papalo expedition project. They originally explored a sinkhole in search of a larger cave. There they found a fissure they dubbed Grita de los Bichos because of the gnats that swarmed them as they first began their descent. Exploring further, they found more fissures that dropped down in stages before reaching another large chasm. The chasm proved too difficult, so they left the area and went to search for larger caves. Carol said to Bill, "Wouldn't it be great to find a really grand Mexican-style entrance?" And right on cue, they discovered the entrance to Cueva Chevé. a 98-feet hole beneath a 22-foot-tall waterfall at the base of a limestone cliff. Carol and Bill went on multiple expeditions and later published their findings in a report from 2001 with the Association for Mexican Cave Studies. The Cueva Chevé cave is the second deepest cave in the Western Hemisphere and the 11th deepest cave in the world. But, while it's not the most impressive on paper, the structure of the cave presents an incredible challenge for any intrepid explorers. Geologists have mapped the cave from the surface and found that it spreads across 47 miles. But by the early 2000s, only 6 miles had been formally explored. 3D mapping of the cave showed that the Chevé cave has 3 distinct levels formed by an underground river. The river began eroding the cave millions of years ago when the cave first formed from the tectonic shift that pushed the Sierra Juarez Mountains up and out of the Gulf of Mexico. The upper layers of the cave are fossil tunnels where the river once flowed through but have since dried up, while the active river courses through the lowest levels of the cave. Although the upper portions aren't easier to traverse, the cave represents a massive challenge for would-be explorers. Close to 2 miles of rope needs to be rigged, and teams of 4 cavers need to transport oxygen tanks, fins, and other heavy scuba equipment close to a mile before reaching the first of 2 underwater sumps. Along the way, early explorers had to establish 3 camps, but later ventures would add another 4 camps in the sprawling abyss. However, the challenges of Cueva Chevé didn't stop people from pushing the limits of cave exploration. In 1988, a fossil site was discovered near Camp 2. The American archaeologist Janet Fitzsimmons led a team alongside the Oaxaca division of the Mexican National Institute of Anthropology and History. Together, they created the Chevé Archaeological Project, which helped map the upper portions of the cave. The team discovered that Cueva Chevé was used for ceremonial sacrifices by the Cuicatec people of Oaxaca. The Cuicatec worship a deity known as the Lord of the Hill, or Señor del Cerro, who they believe resides in Cueva Chevé. They believe the ancient Cuicatec would partake in bloodletting ceremonies to appease the Lord of the Hill and send sacrifices into the mouth of the cave. Fitzsimmons and her team discovered volcanic glass or obsidian sacrificial knives that were thrown into the cave after the ceremonies, and they found other fossils and artifacts like post-classic era ceramic jars filled with jade beads, wooden masks, and buried human remains. But the most important discovery was a turquoise mosaic tablet. Known as the Cueva Chevé tablet, the artifact is split into 4 sections. One quadrant depicts a battle with warriors in alligator and jaguar helmets holding captives by the hair, while other warriors hold prisoners captive. The lower left section contains a snake and beads that represent a date, while the right side of the tablet was unrecoverable due to water damage. The Cuicatec people still exist to this day, with a 2012 census survey estimating the total population at around 13,000 people. On March 1, 1991, one ambitious caver lost his life in the Chevé cave. A team of explorers ventured into the cave led by 3 veterans, Bill Stone, Matt Oliphant, and Don Coons. They wanted to prove that Cueva Chevé was the deepest cave on the planet, after archaeological teams had given up during their exploration some years prior. The new team had been underground for over a week, and they had also reached their limit, a 4,000 feet vertical shaft that was 7 miles from the cave's entrance. While the veterans tried to tackle this new challenge, Christopher Yeager and Peter Haberland were just entering the cave. Peter was an advanced caver, but Chris had only been exploring caves for 2 years. Cueva Chevé proved challenging even for the veterans, so Chris was bold to attempt the venture. The team nicknamed him the Kid, and he got a 30-minute lecture about the safety of the cave. Learn the routes in smaller sections. Carry only light gear at first, don't explore alone, and stay underground for short periods of time until the body can adapt. Chris started to struggle almost immediately by making a critical mistaking. The 2 most important pieces of gear are lights and a rappel rack, which allows climbers to descend the long vertical shafts of the cave. Chris failed to secure his rappel rack to his harness, and he dropped it. This should have been a clear warning. Get out and try again with more experience. But somehow, Chris and Peter managed to locate the lost rappel rack, and they continued the descent. They immediately experienced another massive red flag when the pair got lost for close to an hour. Peter and Chris relocated the route and spent another 7 hours climbing. Once they reached the next 75 feet vertical drop, Peter went down first, and he stood away from the wall in case Chris kicked down any debris. They were only 20 minutes away from Camp 2 and a much-needed rest. Chris only had to switch his rappel harness to the new rope that would reach to the bottom of this new area. He made the switch and leaned back to add tension, but his harness disconnected from the rappel rack that was still connected to the rope. Peter felt a sudden wind blow past him. Chris fell so fast he didn't have time to scream. Peter turned to find Chris with a broken leg and no pulse. Peter went to the camp to get assistance. The team returned and attempted CPR, but it was too late. Chris's girlfriend, Tina Shirk, learned of the accident shortly after because she was just minutes away on the same expedition. Chris Yeager was buried in a passage close to the shaft where he fell. A year later, a team of Chris's friends returned to Cueva Chevé and brought his remains to the surface to be properly buried near his family home in Indiana. In spite of the tragedy, further expeditions sought to prove that these Mexican caves were the deepest on Earth, but explorers kept getting stuck in what was dubbed a terminal sump, a closed-off waterway at the bottom of the cave. In 2003, a team from the United States embarked on an expedition to finally explore the Cueva Chevé past the sumps. The first sump was 459 feet long, while the second was almost 1,000 feet long. Between the two sumps ran an underground stream which flooded the sumps. With new equipment and more experience than previous explorers, the U.S. team pushed past the two sumps and set out to explore more of the Chevé cave. On the other side, they found that the stream between the sumps fed into 3 underground waterfalls. The largest waterfall was over 196 feet tall, and it ended in a 262 feet long lake. The team had no time to explore the waterfalls, but this discovery would prompt even more journeys into the cave over the next 20 years. The team also found a tunnel that had collapsed years ago, blocking the path forward. In 2017, a team of 12 elite explorers trained in both climbing and diving from the United States Deep Caving Team set out to see if the Cueva Chevé connected to the Cueva de la Mano. If a connection existed, then it would make the Cueva Chevé system the deepest cave ever found. The 2017 Chevé cave was supported by 65 people from 11 different countries who staged the gear all the way to the first sump. It took this enormous team of support staff a month to set up the route for the 12 specialists. The 12-person team was split into teams of 4 who would spend the next 3 months exploring the depths of Cueva Chevé. 10 weeks into the expedition, they failed to find the connection they were hoping for. But the journey wasn't a total loss. Instead of finding what they were searching for, they found an ascending tunnel in the opposite direction. The team expected the tunnel to be a parallel route or a dead end, but they discovered a drainage divide in a new chamber. This newly discovered area also had strong winds, which was a huge surprise. In 1989, the wind in the known regions of the Cueva Chevé had completely stopped at the location of Camp 3. After this discovery, the team found a new major cave named Juniper CL6. The dimensions they measured in Juniper CL6 didn't match any of the previously known parts of Cueva Chevé, and the explorers theorized that this may be the master cave of the Sierra Juarez Mountains. While the team was eager to explore the new cave, they ran out of rope above a 130 by 130 foot borehole, so they couldn't push any further. The team went back in 2018 to explore the cave now known as Cueva de la Peña Negra, or Cave of the Black Cliff. 3 additional camps were created for this new venture, with a base camp of roughly 4 people who could communicate to all 6 underground camps via a wire Michi phone system that could last hundreds of hours on a single 9-volt battery. The team found 4 connection points to Cueva Chevé which redefined the upper portion of the cave. The first level is actually just a side passage of the Cave of the Black Cliff. The team also explored half a mile of the deepest section of Cueva Chevé, but they found no additional depth. In 2019, the team returned to explore a section of breakdown near Camp 3. Breakdowns are regions where the cave has collapsed from a variety of possible causes. The area they explored is called the Mad Hatter Breakdown, and they succeeded in pushing past the collapsed rock. Once on the other side, they found another breakdown dubbed Mad Cow. This new area was in a borehole 200 meters above Sump 1, and the new area also had strong wind. Both of these features meant that the team was close to finding the long-sought-after bypass to Sump 1. The team returned in 2021 and succeeded in pushing past Sump 1. There, they found 13 more miles of unexplored tunnels in Cueva Chevé. The majority Cueva Chevé consists of vertical passages, which are wet and difficult to explore, but the new regions past Sump 1 were mostly horizontal. The team discovered a 246-foot-high region known as Harmony Hall, and they continued to explore to a region 1,968 feet below the village of San Miguel Santa Flor. Their efforts are ongoing, and they have 2 goals for 2022: find new entrances near the village of San Miguel Santa Flor and explore more of Peña Negra. That's the story of one of the Chevé Cave, one deepest caves in the world that's home to a history of bloodshed, Who knows what secrets explorers will continue to unearth over the coming years? Are you brave enough to venture into the depths of Chevé? Let us know in the comments section below. While you're there, hit that like and subscribe button to support the channel, and check back soon for more exciting cave stories.